Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time it is a review of the 1996 pulp hero comic book action adventure film, The Phantom. Now, The Phantom is a film that I have a back and forth history with. It's a movie I grew up with. I watched it quite often on VHS, and it's a film that, along with The Rocketeer, that I honestly really enjoyed, and I enjoyed it for many, many years until I got older, revisited it in my teens and in my 20s, and each time I kept falling more and more out of love with the movie. And I remember the most recent viewing before the last viewing that I had of the film, which was a week ago or just a few days ago. I wasn't a fan of it. I thought it was too campy. I thought it was honestly lame. But because I'm doing this marathon of 90s pulp hero movies, I revisited the film for the first time in a few years, and I completely did a 180. I fell back in love with the movie. I loved this. I thought this was thrilling, exciting, fast paced, extremely entertaining, old fashioned action adventure entertainment. Um, I agree with Gene Shalit. Gene Shalit says it's thrilling, and he's right. This movie is a thrill ride. This is one of those rare films to me that is as close to being as perfectly paced as you can get. There's not a dull moment in this movie. It's got a simple plot line involving the Phantom trying to stop the villains from collecting all three of these magical skulls, uh, the skulls of Tuganda, before it's too late, because if they collect all the skulls, then, they can do some major damage with them. So it's up to our hero to stop them. And I actually feel that simple uh, plot line was really a wise choice to make for the story, because it made it so it was consistently engaging, because you had multiple different searches and for the skull, and the plot was never dull or boring, because there was always something that was going on. There's always another skull that the hero was going to try to find before the villains do. It was one of those type of things, and I felt that was a really inspired choice. The film is also lavishly and lovingly directed by Simon Wincer. You can tell that this is a director who really enjoys and appreciates this character, the Phantom, and the source material. He said he was a huge fan of the comics, and that's one of the big reasons why he wanted to do the movie, and it shows. Much like Joe Johnston's loving direction for The Rocketeer, the same passion for the character and for his world definitely does show on the screen with The Phantom. Um, Originally, Joe Dante was hired as a director, and that's why he's actually has a producer credit for the film. And something happened. There's a rumor that maybe he actually did a cut of the film, but it was like too jokey and too campy, and it like had a really bad test screening. So they kind of just scrapped that entire movie and started over. I don't know if that's true or not. If that is, I mean, that'd be interesting to see some footage from that. And it's rumored that it was actually shot possibly before this was even filmed. So it's one of those things that's like, what's going on here? Like, was that? But then again, this is IMDb, and with IMDb trivia, anyone can throw anything in there. So I don't know if it's verified or not. So I wouldn't really think too much of it. But Joe Dante was involved with a version of the Phantom before Simon Wincer came on board. That is definitely true. And Simon Wincer is a director who I definitely feel is quite underrated, and he's done a lot of really good stuff in terms of his direction. I mean, this is a guy who definitely knows his way around a director's chair. Um, So, he directed Quickly Down Under. I believe. Oh yeah, He did direct Daryl. Yeah, Daryl, which I thought was actually quite good. Free Willy, Operation Dumbo Drop, Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. So Simon Wincer has a lot of films in his filmography that are solid, entertaining, well-made movies. And The Phantom is another one of them. To me, The Phantom is a underrated gem. It is a diamond in the rough. It deserves more respect and appreciation and admiration. Even if you don't like the film, it is definitely better than a 4.9 out of 10 on IMDb, and better than its Rotten Tomato score, and better than the low ratings for this just impressive stunt work alone. The stunt work in this film is some of the best from this era. It's really a lot of fun to watch, and it's something you don't see very much of nowadays, because you don't see a lot of stunts other than in film directed by George Miller and like Fury Road. Other than that, you're not really seeing a lot of like real stunts or Mission Impossible films because Tom Cruise is crazy and he just wants to do this shit himself. Because he's just looking for new ways to die, like the Top Gun Maverick trailer said. But anyway, it's one of those things that is really something that is kind of a lost art. And when you watch the stunt work in this movie, you're just in awe. I mean, the sequence with the biplane where the Phantom jumps from the plane to a horse. I mean, that's just stuff that's just straight out of the serials from the 30s and 40s, or so. Just it's just insane stunt work. And there's multiple different instances like that throughout the film. Even Billy Zane himself got into the insanity because there's a scene in the film where the Phantom jumps from uh, car to car. He jumps from one roof of a car to another to basically cross the street and stay one step ahead of the police. And Billy Zane did it all himself. It wasn't a stuntman. Billy Zane in the suit leapt from car to car, and it's just it seems like it's a pretty straightforward sequence, but the difficulty level is fairly high. So it's a great looking shot. It's a great looking scene, and Billy Zane just makes it look like it was nothing, like it was a piece of cake, but it really isn't. And there's a lot of stunt work like that throughout the film, as well as some really inspired fight choreography. A lot of the Phantom's punches and kicks definitely have some weight to them. Uh, Even clever ways to get around the PG rating to make it so it still is able to be as action packed as it possibly can be. Uh, so it's one of those things where this film does a way better job capturing the spirit of the pulp adventure comics and pulp hero storytelling than it gets credit for. It's one of those movies that I think just I don't know why it hasn't resonated as much with the same type of audiences that really enjoy The Rocketeer or The Shadow or Dick Tracy. Maybe it's because he just wears purple, but if that's the case, I think that's kind of unfair. It's not kind of unfair; it is unfair because the Phantom, his suit is purple. It's a part of his identity. You know what else is also a part of the Phantom's identity in the comics? Zebra striped underwear. Thankfully, in the movie, he doesn't wear zebra striped underwear, but they actually were considering doing it, but then they realized that's too absurd and too silly, uh, and it's something that audiences would not be able to take seriously. So they scrapped it because they were like, we're already asking the audiences to accept a lot with this purple suit. And on that purple suit, I think it's actually a great suit. Jim Henson's Creature Shop, I thought they did a fantastic job with this suit. I really love the look of it. It looks like it's straight from the comics, but it also has some contemporary elements to it that are overlooked, like different patterns within the suit, including like different skulls and stuff like that that are outlined in black. So you had a lot of different black and purple stuff, stylings going on throughout the suit. And Billy Zane absolutely filled the suit really well. I mean, he spent over a year or a year getting in shape just for this role, and it shows. Like, this is probably the moment in Billy Zane's life and career where he was in the best shape of his life. And I would not be surprised if you asked Billy what one of his favorite films were. You know, what experience, what was some of the most fun you ever had doing a movie? And I'm pretty sure he would probably say The Phantom would be one of those films, if not near the top of the list, because this was a match made in heaven, this film, because Billy Zane loves The Phantom. Much like Simon Wincer, who's a huge fan of the character in the comics, Billy Zane is every bit as big of a fan of this character in the comics. He was introduced to them on the set of Dead Calm, and he really, really fell in love with the character and with the comic books, and he started collecting them and became a huge fan of it. So this was a role that he was just hoping one day he could play. And it shows the passion, the drive to really do this character justice definitely shows with Billy Zane's performance here. He's endearing, he's dashing, he's believable in the role because he buys into it. And it's one of those things that if you had another actor who wasn't necessarily a fan of the Phantom and wasn't as big of a fan as Billy Zane, it might not have worked nearly as well. But Billy Zane loved the character so much and wanted to do it justice as greatly as he possibly could. And I know it's not necessarily, that's not a word, but you know what I mean. He wanted to do it justice, and he even went to lengths that very few actors would really go to. He analyzed the mannerisms of the Phantom in the comics and did the best he could to adopt those mannerisms for his performance as the Phantom on film. And that's just going an extra mile that you really don't see a lot of people do nowadays when it comes to portraying a comic book character. So the film was a bomb. It was a massive bomb. It cost 45 million, and it is definitely one of those movies that you can see the budget. I mean, they shot on location in Thailand for numerous sequences. They went to New York. They even ended up building a whole set that was just an old 30s version of New York City. And it's one of those things that you rarely see nowadays as well. Like, there's just these just giant, massive sets. And of course, some of the visual effects and things like that. But yeah, like I said, it was a massive bomb. It made $17.3 million on a $45 million budget. And that's not including the advertising, which Paramount pumped in a decent amount of advertising for like tie-ins for like Subway and trading cards and various other things. So it's not like Paramount just dump this movie. Like they had some faith in it to do some kind of business, and it bombed. I think it's because the Phantom, it has a very big cult following, a very loyal readers all across the world, but it's not one of those characters though that has the same resonance as Spider-Man in the US, for instance. So it was one of those film or Batman. So that's why the film just didn't do that well. I also feel that Billy Zane, despite the fact that I personally feel he's perfect for this role and did a great job, and I would not have honestly wanted anyone else to play the role of the Phantom in this movie, other than Billy Zane. He wasn't a really big star, so he didn't have a big star to attract audiences to the film. You also didn't have really the best advertising. Slam Evil, that's one of the lamest taglines in cinematic history. Like, people just took one look at this poster and were like, I'm gonna pass. Guy in a purple suit, Slam Evil, what the hell is that? It's like that's the kind of shit you see in a Power Rangers poster. I mean, like, it's one of those things that, yeah, did not think that one through at all. But like I said, the film itself is really not that lame. I know some people have said, "Oh, it's campy." Yeah, yeah, it's supposed to be. Oh, it's corny. Yeah, it is. But it's supposed to be that way. It's a throwback to the type of film that you would have seen in the 30s and 40s in the serials that the Indiana Jones trilogy or quadrilogy really is inspired by. And when you look at it in that kind of vein and you compare it to that kind of film, it's right up there with some of the best because it really does capture that adventure vibe so well. And a big part of that's a script by Jeffrey Boehm, which I honestly think is a really good script. Jeffrey Boehm actually, speaking of Indiana Jones, he was one of the writers for The Last Crusade. So this is a guy who definitely can operate in this particular wheelhouse. And I really enjoyed this script. I thought it had some a nice amount of wit to it in terms of the dialogue. I felt that the uh, Skulls of Tuganda, which some people call, whatever, cliched or stupid, I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was fun. And the stuff where you have the villains, Drax and company, are on an adventure along with the heroes. So the villains are going on an adventure while the heroes are also doing the same. I like that aspect of it as well. And like I said, the script is just creates a plot that's so well paced that it's never boring. It's just there's always something for the Phantom to do or for Kit Walker. Um, and even though they have a PG rating, it still has enough action and intrigue to make up for it. It's one of those movies that would I have liked to have seen a little bit more violence? Absolutely. I'm not going to turn down the opportunity for more action, especially gunplay, because if there's one lame thing about this movie, it is definitely when he shoots his guns, he's like shooting swords out of people's hands and stuff. Admittedly is pretty lame. Um, because it's like you can definitely tell that that's one of the moments where the PG rating really was hurting the film. But then there's other moments where they really kind of just sneak some stuff in there that isn't really necessarily PG rated stuff. Like Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa's character when he gets eaten by sharks and there's like blood in the water. Like that's the kind of stuff that's like not necessarily just for kids. So there was definitely a little bit of an edge here despite the fact that it was not taking itself serious. That's another thing I really liked about the script is that it knew the wheelhouse. It was like this is a guy running around in a purple suit with a skull ring. Like we really should not be taking this too seriously. And for the most part, it didn't. And I think that was the right move to make because if they tried to play it straight, it just would have been really hard to watch. But they didn't go that route, and that is one of the reasons why the film works as well as it does. I mean, even simple stuff like when the bad guys steal the first skull, and one of the skeletons comes to life and strangles one of the henchmen. Just some little things like that go a long way. It's out there and it's not necessarily realistic, but it's good fun. It's good old fashioned entertainment. Popcorn entertainment. Turn your brain off and just sit back and enjoy. And definitely does harken back to the same Phantom comics from the back in the day, the early runs, as well as a lot of the comic sensibilities at the time when it comes to its overall tone. And I also really like the whole back and forth that Kit has with his father, the previous Phantom. So, and it's also that's another aspect of the character and his history that I've always thought was interesting, is that he's not really immortal. There are people who think he is because there's always a new Phantom, but really what it is it's just generations of Phantoms, and that's something that you don't really see very often when it comes to heroes is a generational thing. And he's not superhuman either. He doesn't have superpowers. I guess the ring that he has is one of those things I guess you can consider to be a power. But other than that, he's just a regular guy. He's in good shape and carries on the mantle of the Phantom because it's a family tradition. So, Speaking of the Phantom, I want to mention, of course, the Phantom himself, Billy Zane, which I've already sang his praises, and I will continue to do so because he was really good in this role. But I also really enjoyed Treat Williams as the villain Xander Drax. And this is another thing that I've changed my mind on, flip flopped on over the years. Because when I was younger, when I was a kid, I liked it, I enjoyed it, I had fun with it. When I saw it when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, I was like, this is corny, this performance is terrible, it's too hammy, it's cringe inducing to watch. But when I watched it again fairly recently, I loved it. I went back to loving it again because I really enjoyed watching Treat Williams just have so much fun with this role. He said it was something he'd always wanted to do, and he was always a fan of these 30s, 40s type of serials, and he always wanted to play that kind of character. And it shows. Like, he's having a ball, and you can't help but enjoy it. I mean, I know it's definitely, not necessarily the best acting, but that's not really the point of the performance. It's more about the persona. It's more about the larger than life attitude that Xander Drax has, and it's more about Treat Williams just chewing the scenery and hamming it up, which is the whole point of the character. So I don't really have an issue with the acting because that's secondary to the overall persona, to the attitude, to the just exuberance. It is honestly the best word for it. It's just like, it's unbelievable. Oh man, hey, that's honestly toning it down. Like, Treat Williams turned it up to 11 in this movie, especially in that scene. But yeah, I really enjoyed watching Treat Williams just chew the scenery as Xander Drax. Kristy Swanson I also thought was really solid as Diana Palmer. One of the better roles of her career for sure. Catherine Zeta-Jones was sexy and gorgeous as Sala. Her character, though, was one aspect of the script that I thought didn't quite work. What is going on with this character? She starts out as a femme fatale. She's a henchwoman for Xander Drax. And then she turns a new leaf at some point in the film and is now a hero. And now is a member, or now she's aligning with the good guys, and she's teaming up with the Phantom and Diana to fight the Sang Brotherhood and Drax, and it just doesn't really make any sense. It's a character change and shift that comes right out of left field, smacks you right in the face, and leaves you puzzled. So yeah, I don't really think that really worked. She should have just stayed a villain. That there was no point to really changing her character like that. James Remar, I always thought he was a fairly underrated actor, and he's done a lot more stuff than I think, a lot more good roles than a lot of people give him credit for. This is one of them as Quill. I really liked this performance. I thought it was a character who definitely held his own and was a nice way to balance out the over the top spectacle that was Treat Williams' performance as Xander Drax. Definitely more down to earth, but equally as effective. You also have Patrick McGoohan, who plays the Phantom's father. Like the few scenes that he was in, he had great chemistry with Billy Zane. And Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa is the great Kabai Sang. Really enjoyed him. He's another actor who just likes to chew the scenery, but he does it in a way that's just so captivating and entertaining to watch. Of course, a lot of people think of him as Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat, so do I. But I also thought he did a really great job playing Kabai Sang. Really would have liked to have seen more of him, to be honest, because he only really shows up near the end. There's a few other actresses and actresses, including Casey Simasko, plays one of the henchmen. You also have Samantha Eggar, who has a bit role. I believe she's the mother. Yeah, she's the mother of Diana. But really, that's the main cast for the film. Another thing I definitely want to mention about the movie is the rousing, rollicking, just wonderful score by David Newman. This is one of my favorite scores of all time, to be honest. It's one of the most adventurous scores when it comes to just really capturing that spirit of adventure. It is right up there with John Williams' work for Raiders of the Lost Ark and the Indiana Jones films, or James Horner's work for The Rocketeer. It's a really stellar score that does not get enough credit, just like the film itself, sadly. And it's something that we heard in a lot of film trailers for many years after this. So it's one of those scores that I definitely feel deserves to be appreciated and listened to and given as much accolades as possible, because David Newman really did kick some major ass with this score for The Phantom. Um, and it's one of those things. Another aspect of the film that even if you don't like the movie, you can at least admit the score is quite good. Cinematography by David Burr, I also thought was solid, if not exemplary at times, especially when it comes to really just getting the most out of these lavish locations in Thailand. Uh, the editing by O. Nicholas Brown and Brian H. Carroll is also excellent. Like I said, it's a film that's very tightly packed and very tightly paced, and the editing is so well done that it just enhances all of those aspects of the film when it comes to its pacing. Uh, and there's just a lot of great scenes of spectacle, from stunt work, from the sequence on the bridge, which is a great stunt, and it is just really something that uh, really definitely gets your adrenaline going, because it's just a really well put together stunt sequence, from stuff involving real animals like wolves and stuff like that, even like a tiger that shows up and helps the Phantom, to the witty script that is not afraid to have some fun and poke a few holes in some things, and is not afraid to, in a way, kind of make fun of itself, which it honestly is to the film's benefit. To like I said, other moments of spectacle, like the sequence in the museum, where it's just a simple shot of the Phantom using his guns to slide down the wires that are on an elevator, and it's just a great looking shot, and it's so cool. So there's a lot of moments in this where you're like, that was cool, like it's really cool, like uh and even to the climax, where they're just going inside these torpedoes and to get away from the villains and escape before the island explodes, and just great bits of sword play and swashbuckling fun and fisticuffs, and it's just a really fun movie. It's a film that I easily could watch again and again and probably not get tired of it, because it's just so well paced. It's got so many likable things about it, so many things about it that are worth mentioning and worth noting and worth appreciating and enjoying again and again. And yeah, I cannot really sing enough praises for The Phantom, because it's a film that does not get enough credit. It's wildly underrated. And also pretty hard to find, which is even more frustrating. So how are people gonna discover this movie, discover this gem, if it's hard to find, especially for people who want to see things on Blu-ray? And because the Blu-ray's been out of print for years, because Paramount just let Lionsgate do it, and once the rights expired, that was it. And now it's really hard to find the Phantom on Blu-ray, and even necessarily on DVD. I mean, you can get on DVD, but like, this is a film that deserves to be released in high definition and remastered, so it can be captured that way for all of time, because like I said, it's a really good movie for what it is, and it's got a lot of great looking shots in it. And I think that it just being stuck in like kind of a meh Blu-ray transfer and like a even worse DVD transfer is not really doing the film justice. So I really hope one of these days Shout Factory does a Shout Select release for the Phantom, because it released a Shadow and they just made a deal with Paramount. So I'm hoping that this does make it onto Blu-ray with a new 2K or 4K remaster in the near future. If that doesn't happen, that's a bummer, but I still recommend you try to find and track this film down in whatever format you can, because it really is worth at least one watch. It's not a film that I personally feel deserves to be forgotten about or deserves to be buried among the rubble. It's one of those movies that should be unearthed and should be uncovered and should not be forgotten. Because, like I said, for an old-fashioned action-adventure movie, it really does the job. It really does a job that is remarkably well. So, when it comes to what was trying to do, The Phantom really does do a slamming good job. So, anyway, thank you for watching my review of The Phantom. I really don't know what else to say about the film except if I were to rate it out of 5 stars. I would give the movie 4.5 out of 5. I loved it that much, folks. Only problems I have with it, would have liked to have had a little bit more gunplay, and would change the whole thing with Salah's character. But other than that, didn't really have any other issues with the movie. So yeah, thanks for watching my review of The Phantom, and as always, I will see you later. See ya.